Hello everyone, it's Jen Scrapbena Creations. I'm so excited to be collaborating again with my dear friend Kristie Marcotte. Today we are using a Catherine Pooler 6x6 paper pad called the Daily Grind. And also we're both using this super sweet stamp set called Mugshots, which pairs really nicely with this stamp set. Now I went ahead and colored a whole bunch of these little cups of coffee and or tea or something warm over the weekend. So I have a number of images here to use for my 24 cards. So Kristie and I both managed to get 24 cards out of this paper pad. There's 24 sheets with 8 unique designs. So there is 4 sheets of each, and I'm just going to show you each of the pattern papers here. So there's the one with the coffee beans, and then the kind of overhead shot of the coffee cups, a couple of black and white ones, and then there's this really adorable pattern paper with all the coffee cups, the bold stripes, the polka dots, and then the plaid. Now what I loved about this paper pad is it says on the bottom there which Catherine Pooler inks go with the collection. So I happen to have 5 of them, and I use all but one, I think, for my cards. And then I also have this to-go coffee mug die, and I created 3 of those in advance in case I wanted to use them on some of the cards. So let's jump into design number 1. This is cards 1 through 3. So for most of the designs, I'm creating 3 cards. I decided to start off with the black and white papers because I actually felt like they were going to be the most difficult for me to use. This one that I'm using at the back, I have to say, was the one that I liked least from the paper pad, and so I decided to use that as a border behind my panel. So I'm using some bright pink cardstock, and then I cut the black pattern paper with all the white images and coffee related words out of the Honeybee Stamps scalloped frame dies. Those are newer to me and I'm absolutely loving them, and I like how the black and white really kind of pops with this bright pink color. So I did cut a circle out of the cardstock that I used behind my scalloped piece of pattern paper, and then I added some of the polka dot paper and then my favorite stamp in the set, the little cat. Now I created 2 almost identical, and the third one I did use a different coffee cup. Moving on to card design number 2, this is cards 4 through 6. I'm using the Sunny Studio. This is the quad square die, and I cut that out of my favorite paper in the paper pad. This is the one with all the little cups on it. So the cups on the patterned paper match the ones in the stamp set, and it is just the sweetest. I did layer up some of that polka dot paper behind my squares, and then I stamped out the sentiment, "May your coffee be strong," with the brown Catherine Pooler ink on some white cardstock, and I'm just going to have that as a strip along the bottom of my card. I did pop up all of the little mugs here on some foam tape, and you'll get to see the 4 out of the 5 mugs here really well. So there's the one with the dog on it, the little cat mug that I was saying was my favorite, and then there's the taller mug with the heart in the center, the really cute one with the flowers, and then there's also a smaller striped one which you will see coming up in some of the future cards. So I did use all of the different style of coffee cups in my cards, coloring them up differently, and I just love the way these turned out. So there's that card, and you can see there that one to the left, I have the striped mug. Moving on to the next set of cards, I had a strip of that black and white pattern paper with all the coffee words on it. So this is cards 7 through 9, so card design number 3. And I wanted to feature the coffee bean paper. I really loved the kind of monochromatic brown with that paper, and I thought it would pair nicely with the black strip of paper that I had left. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that coffee bean paper to the right hand side, and then the black and white paper to the left hand side. I am going to use a Love from Lizzie peel off here. This is the black, and I'm just going to adhere that on top of where those two pieces of pattern paper meet, just to finish that off nicely. So I will let that overhang a little bit and then tuck that to the back of my card panel. For the focal area, I used the Honeybee Stamps scalloped frame die again. I'm just adding some pattern paper to the back of this where it's going to hang off the side that's a little bit higher up. And then I stamped out the sentiment, "Make today so awesome that yesterday gets jealous," which I think is super cute. So I did color up a few of these cat mugs in black, of course. I have two black kitties, so I had to represent them in my coloring. And I actually have a mug like this. So it was super fun to color it up with my cool gray markers. For the other mug, I simply used some of the lighter cool gray markers to make it look white, and then I colored the heart brown so it matched perfectly with this pattern paper choice. And then I did stamp the steam from the coffee. I did a second generation stamp so it would be a little bit lighter, and made 3 cards with that design. So moving on to cards number 10 to 12. This is a super simple design. I loved this plaid pattern paper. The bright colors are so pretty. So I simply cut out a stitched heart. This is a Heffy Doodle die, and I will have all the products listed below if you want to check anything out, including the stamp and the pattern paper 6x6 pad, which are still available. So again, just adding the mug to the bottom left hand side, and I used a strip of the polka dot paper that I had left, and then use the sentiment, "If you're going to rise, you might as well shine." I love the sentiments in this stamp set. Cards number 13 to 15, I loved this bold striped pattern paper. Again, I'm using the Honeybee scalloped frames here, just cut that out of some white cardstock. And then I went ahead and cut down some of the coffee cup pattern paper to kind of sit on top of that. So all you could see is the stitch detailing and the scalloped edge from the frame die. And I just felt like that broke up that really busy striped pattern paper. So for this one, I stamped out "May Your Coffee Be Strong" in some of the bright blue ink. This is All That Jazz, I believe it's called, from Catherine Pooler. And here's where I'm going to use my Paper Smooches die here with the to-go cup. I don't think this is still available. Paper Smooches has actually closed their business. I will try to find something similar and link it down below, but I love how this came out. I just paper pieced it with some of the scraps of the pattern paper. So moving on to the next 3 cards, I decided to create a slimline card. So this is cards 16 to 18. And I used some of that coffee cup paper. I love this, just kind of layering on some khaki or brown cardstock. The cardstock that I'm using is some old Stampin' Up cardstock that I'm trying to get rid of. I have no idea if it's still available, but if you want to try to recreate these cards, just try to match up your cardstock with whatever you have in your stash. So I decided to use some of that leftover bold striped paper to the bottom. Now it wasn't quite long enough to match the slimline size, so I did use my Lawn Fawn scallop border there to cut out a little bit of a border to go over top of the seam of both of those pattern papers. Love how this card turned out, and then I'm just going to add the coffee mug to the bottom there. And I'm using the full sentiment, "May your coffee be strong and your Monday be short." Isn't that the sweetest? The pink ink is Party Dress. So love how those ones turned out too. The colors in this pattern paper were absolutely gorgeous. So at this point, I mostly only have strips left. So for cards 19 to 21, I'm using this leftover strip of the plaid pattern paper. I'm backing this on to some, it's kind of like a mint color. This is some paper from Recollections. They put out a 12 by 12 paper pad that has just solid pastel colors. And I had a bunch of these little squares left over. These are the insides from the Sunny Studio quad die that I used for the previous card with this pattern paper. So I wanted to make sure that I used these up. So I decided to put 3 of those to the right hand side, and then I used some of that mint paper, stamped my sentiment, and I cut that out using the stitched semicircle by Sunny Studio, and then I just added a little heart there to the right hand side of the sentiment. So there is that card, or those 3 cards. And then moving on to card 22. So I'm only going to do one of these. This was the largest piece of pattern paper that I had left. You could see that there's a chunk missing to the bottom right. So I am going to cover this up using the strip of the solid stripes here. So that will cover that up nicely. And then again, I cut out a strip here with my Lawn Fawn scallop border dies, and I'm just going to have that go from the edge of the left hand side to the edge of the right hand side, even though I'm leaving a little bit of a border with the pattern paper. And again, I'm going to use up 3 of the remaining little squares that I have left from those previous cards. So I thought those pattern papers were just pretty enough on their own at the top, so I'm going to add the sentiment to the bottom, and that just breaks up that striped pattern paper, and then adding the little coffee mug there to the right hand side. So there's a look at that card. Moving on to the last 2 cards, cards 23 and 24. All I have left at this point now are these strips of paper. So I'm going to add the matching ones to the right hand side and the left hand side. I didn't quite get this one down aligned properly the first time I put it down, so I did have to carefully peel that back up and get that nice and straight. And then I'm going to add the one to the right hand side, and I will need to trim off a few of the overhanging pieces there, one on either side. So just using my scissors to do that. And then for the coffee bean one, I'm going to add that on top of some of that mint solid pattern paper from the Recollections 12 by 12 paper pad. And I think that just breaks up this particular piece of pattern paper from the 2 on the bottom. This is a really great design if you only have those kind of 2-inch strips. I think mine tend to be around 1 3/4 inches, but it's a great way to use those up if that's all that you have left near the end of a paper pad. So I cut some of that mint pattern paper with a scalloped circle. I'm just adding some pattern paper here, some scraps to either side of that where it's going to come off that center strip, just to make sure it's nice and level. And then I stamped out the Make Today So Awesome That Yesterday Gets Jealous again. I loved that sentiment. And I'm going to add the little dog mug here to the bottom of that. I had thought about using that heart, but in the end I didn't feel like it really fit. I thought the mug was really all that was needed. I did need to add a little bit of cardstock under the bottom of that mug so it would be nice and level. And then I'm going to add some black glaze pen to the eyes and the nose, and that will finish up those 2 cards. So here's a look at the scraps that I have left. Not very much at all. I was really pleased with how many cards I was able to get out of this paper pad. And this cardstock is actually 80 pounds. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you love paper and have not used a Catherine Pooler paper pad, I would highly recommend trying one out. I think I'm hooked. I loved it. So here's a look at all of the 24 cards that I made today. Don't forget to head on over to Kristie's channel and see what she came up with using the Daily Grind 6x6 pattern paper by Catherine Pooler and the Mug Shots stamp set. Such a cute little name for a stamp set. I hope you enjoyed all of these cards. I had a blast with these. The colors were beautiful. The bright kind of teal and mint and pink, and then paired with the browns and the black and white, I just thought was really, really pretty. Let me know which of your card was your favorite, if you had a favorite from the collection today. Here's a look at the Copic colors used for all the coloring of my little mugshot images. Thank you so much for spending some of your day with me. Again, head over to Kristie. Kristie, thanks for another fabulous collaboration. I'll see you guys really soon in the next one. Bye!